think probably for the first time, very, very seriously, considered the idea, the potentiality that my parents might not return home, and I might indeed not be on my own. That wasn't my fear. I knew I'd go over to Grandma and Grandpa's. My family is very honest, very open. We had discussed this. You know, there were clear things to all of us regarding what would happen in the case of, you know, a tragedy within our family. And so I wasn't, the question of what to do didn't concern me at all. It was the losing of my parents, my two particular parents. And it, I think, kind of got to me. And it did on the phone the other day with the folks. You know, I got pretty teary-eyed because it's one of those things where as I've gotten older, I've gained a real appreciation for what parents truly are. And that is, for me, a multifaceted, multi-tiered organism that speaks volumes with every whisper. I mean, the parent is explanatory in every way. I mean, the parent is the penultimate example, and I feared losing them, with the understanding that I would gain a different example in the process. And it's not cut and dry like that. It's not because, well, I viewed it very systematically, and I was concerned for my future if I didn't have the right examples in front of me to show me. It's not that case. There was obvious love there. There is obvious love there. I love my folks. My folks are a one-of-a-kind couple. They are independently and individually one-of-a-kind people. It's just fantastic. And this kind of has led me to, so this is kind of what I'm explaining is what some people would call a malaise, the funk that I mentioned earlier. It's kind of it's a feeling. And it's been interesting to see how it's kind of spread across everything I do. So in terms of the workplace, I tend to overwork myself. I take my product, my produce, my end results, like this video for instance, pretty seriously. The design of this means that I can be much more free-flowing, but I'm still a perfectionist. And it's in the workplace, in this brand new job that I've got, in this relatively new state where I live, in the field of my choice, that I want to just excel and be the most I can be and get to some place. You know, and I think this is the big catch. This very last bit is get to the aspiration to get to some place. We all, you know, if asked what that place would be, very few of us would come up with very solid answers. And even the people with far stretching answers to that question, there's always, okay, well then what? You know, and that's kind of the nature of perpetuity. You know, that's the idea of just going forward and just going, trucking. You know, being alive on human on human terms, on earthly soil. You know, this is touchdown. You know, this is us. This is where we are, and it's just very easy to keep things super intellectual for myself, because then I can just discuss them freely. And I looked back at I think week 2 on my site where I discussed life and death, and the reason I felt and I explained to you guys that I feel quite liberated by the temporary nature of time, our time. Time is eternal, of course. Time is, you know, people have thought that, you know, maybe time is artificial. You know, time is a human label that we throw onto something. I mean, yes, that's obviously true. Time is a word. Any word for time in any language is nothing more than a word. Not that words are, you know, to be minimized. I'm simply saying that a word hardly does justice, or doesn't even come close to encompassing the spectrum that is time on an intellectual and an actual scale. I mean, it's just really, really fascinating. And it makes me wonder what the hell I'm doing. And it's not because I lack direction. No, I'm focused. But it's because there are certain things that are not happening. I mean, I'm kind of rambling here about this, particularly at this point, because I've hit that point where I don't know what's going to happen next. And it's a great, exciting place to be. It's part of why we moved out of Little Rock and live in California now. There's this desire to be just uncomfortable enough. And once you're on that road of discomfort, the question is how uncomfortable are you willing to get, and how long will that last? Time comes up again. You know, it's all in the timing, and timing is all in time. And so it's a very interesting thing to consider, and I would say as it gets closer and closer, a little more frightening. And I think this is one of the key factors that has really given me access to a, a drive for honesty, personal honesty with myself and others, that I don't think I would have were it not for the temporary nature of our time here on Earth. And what's really kind of accelerated this in terms of my parents is that, God willing, I will outlive them. I would like, for their sake, for me to outlive them. I want my kids to outlive me and be prosperous. And, I want to see my kids get places and then depart knowing that they have places yet to go.